All right, guys. In this video, we are going to be adding a little bit more functionality to our search, and we'll be uh, hopefully being able to search on both courses and professors by the end of this video. We're also going to be fixing up the search results to show not just this random static image and then making it look a little bit better. Um, and then if we have time, I would also like to just set up these professors or this professors and courses page. Because right now they're still just kind of the Mendix defaults. What I'm picturing is maybe we'll set up one of them and then I'll leave the other one for you guys to figure out how to do on your own. But these will just show like all the professors and all the courses in our database. So that's kind of what I'm picturing for this video. Hopefully it won't go too long, but let's just get started. I'm just pulling up some notes really fast here. So to get started, let's actually start with fixing the, let's see, let's start by fixing up this right here. So currently, if you guys remember from the last video, we just made it so that you would type in an input and that input would then be passed to the search results page. And then inside the search results page, it would use this list view and this page parameter to display the search results of whatever input we gave on the previous page. And so that seems to be working all right. But you'll notice that right now we're only be able to search on professors. You'll see that this professors get professor search results. So if we wanted to make it to get professors and course search results, maybe someone wanted to search for a course on here, like MSB 341, they wouldn't actually see that data populate here. So there's a couple different ways you could go about this, and feel free if you think of a better way, then you can totally do that. But just for simplicity's sake, what I'm going to do is make it so that on this page right here, underneath the search box, there'll just be a little toggle between whether a user wants to search for professors or search for courses. And so when they select that, then that will change what search results we populate in the search results page here. So let's just get started with that. Um, in order to accomplish this, I'm first going to turn on this layout view so we can see our different structures we have going on here. We're probably going to need something like a checkbox or a radio button to accomplish this. So let's try a radio button first and see if we can get that working. But kind of what I'm picturing is, let's see, might need two radio buttons. Let's just click into this and take a look really fast. But yeah, kind of what I'm picturing is that users would be able to toggle between, oh, I want to search on professors or I want to search on courses. So let's see if we can get this working. So do we need two? We might need two. All right, let's see. Let me just see how this checkbox looks as well, because we could maybe use, well, we might just have to experiment. But let's start with the radio buttons. Let's see if we can get that working first. So in order to accomplish that, what we'll need is another attribute on our search field entity that will store whether or not users want to search on professors or on courses. So let's go into our domain model first and we can configure that. So if you guys remember, we have this non-persistable entity, which is just, it's not saved in memory, or it's not saved in the database. It's only saved in the browser when someone starts up the website. So this is really useful for just kind of storing like placeholder data, which is exactly what we need here because we don't want to, this could change depending on what search results users want to search on. So currently we only have an input attribute. Maybe we can add a new attribute that would store whether or not they want to search on professors or courses. So maybe we just call this is professor search. And you'll notice that when I typed in the word is, the type that Mendix inferred was a Boolean. So if you guys aren't familiar with Booleans, it literally just means true or false, which are really useful for what we're trying to do here. Because if it's a professor search, then we know we're just searching professors. If it's not, then we know we're searching courses. And so let's actually say that the default value is true. We can just set that professors are searched by default, and then users can toggle that. Okay, cool. And then for access rules, that should be fine. So we can close out of this. Okay, so now we have another attribute in our search field entity. That's good. Now if we hop back over to our main, and let's delete this for a second. And let's go into this radio buttons right here and see if we can set the attribute to is professor search. Okay. And let's just say for the caption, search professors. There we go. I was surprised that it didn't pop up with two radio buttons originally. I was kind of confused as to why that was, because there should be two options, true or false. But I'm worried that this might be a little bit confusing for users. What I'd prefer, let's see if we can do this. I'd prefer it if we could actually say, I don't know if it's going to let us. Yeah, I guess not. Well, what we could do is, because originally what I wanted to do is just have a toggle where it's either search professors or search courses, but maybe this would actually be better, is we just create a second Boolean value for is it courses searching as well. Is it searching courses, excuse me. And so that way users could then search both at the same time. And we could just show two different list views, one of professors, one of courses. That might be kind of a cool way to accomplish what we're trying to do. So let's do that actually. So let me just duplicate this. I'll just drag another radio button in right here. And then let's hop back over to our domain model and let's just create one more Boolean value for courses. Is it a course search? Is courses search. And let's say by default, that's also true. So by default, both professors and courses are being searched at the same time. And now if we click back into this radio button right here, we can then set this attribute as is course search. And there you go. You can see our errors are all gone. Let's change the label as well. So just search courses. Okay. There we go. And now we have these options. So let's start up our server and we can just look in the browser to see how this looks. It's not going to do anything yet because we haven't actually configured it to like these Boolean values by themselves don't mean anything. So we'll actually have to go into our microflow and change a couple things. So we'll do that in just a second. But while this is loading, maybe you guys can try and like visualize in your head, once we've created this Boolean value, or these two Boolean values, I guess, what will we need to configure inside of the microflow to make sure that it's checking to see if that search option is configured. Because if it's set to no or set to false, then we shouldn't be returning results for that search, right? Like if search professors is set to false, then we don't want to return anything for professors. So we'll need to figure out how to configure that in a second. Hopefully this will give you guys a good idea. Like if you guys have similar functionality in your guys' app, that you can use non-persistable entities like how I'm using them here to create different search options or store different things just locally inside of a browser instance. But yeah, let's hop over to our app. So I'm just gonna hop over here. Cool. And there you see that search professors and search courses are there, and they're both set to by default, they're set to yes, which is good. Perfect. Okay, let's hop back over. So now that we know that that is loading and working, the next thing that we're going to need to do is make sure that Mendix knows what those things mean. And so we need to hop into our microflow to do that. So if you guys remember, all we're doing is we're passing the search input over to the search results page. Well, now we're also passing the search professors and search courses Boolean values over to that page. So we can use that to then set which results we're going to display. So how do we do that? Well, I will show you guys. It's actually very simple. I don't even know if we need to change the microflow now that I think about it. There is something in Mendix called conditional visibility. So visibility is just toggling or configuring what things are displayed on your pages. And you can do that using attributes that we just created. So for example, if this is our professors list view, we don't want to show this if professors, like searching on professors is toggled to no, but we do want to show it if it's toggled to yes. So we can actually just click into this. And if we go into, let's see, where is it? Visibility right here. You'll see by default, it's just set to default. But if we click edit, you'll see this option that is based on attribute value. So what that means is this will only show based on an attribute value, which in this case is, you got it, is professor search, right? We only want to show that if is professor search is set to true, which it is right now. That's perfect. So let's click OK. And now we'll take care of the is courses search in just a second, but I think that this is the easiest way to accomplish what we're trying to do here. If we were to rerun this, I'm going to hop back over to the browser. Okay. So right now, if we were to just type in Scott and search, it should show search results, and you'll see that it does. But if we go back and we type Scott and we set search professors to no, it should not show anything. And you'll see, there we go. There's nothing shown. That's good, right? That means that our check is working, that it's only showing results if search professors is set to true. This is great. Okay, let's hop back over to this search results page. And now let's actually create another list view that, well, actually, I might leave this for you guys. I want to challenge you guys to create another list view just down right here. I'll create one really fast and I'll show you guys what I want you to do. I want you to create one for courses and configure searching on courses with this input. And I'll give you guys a hint of how to do that. If we hop over to our, back over to our search results page, if you'll remember from a couple of videos ago, we made this microflow, this DS professors, get professor search results. If we click into that, you'll see that the logic is actually very simple. We're just passing in a search field parameter, and then we're retrieving a list of professors from the database with some constraints, if you guys remember this, where the name contains part of the search field input. And then we're just returning that list that we retrieved from our database. And so I want to challenge you guys to see if you guys can implement the courses list view on your own. All you'd have to do is to create another microflow just like this, where you pass in a search field as a parameter, and then you retrieve a list of courses from the database based on that XPath constraint, and then return that list of courses into another list view. And so I would challenge you guys to try and do that and then see if you can configure it so that it only shows, same thing, use visibility. It only shows when is courses search is set to true. And you can just drop that list view right down here. So by the time the next video rolls around, I'll do that on my own time. But I want to challenge you guys and see if you can implement courses list view and searching on courses on your own. So I'll just leave that there. Okay, so I think that that's all we're actually going to do for the rest of our searching. So let's actually hop on, or let's actually move on to the next thing that I want to show you guys how to do, which is fixing this silly little profile image here, because you'll notice that it's the same for everyone. It's not actually like dynamically changing. So how do we implement this? This is a little bit more complicated, but I hope that it'll give you guys a good idea of how to do this, because I think this is a pretty common dilemma that you might run into, is how to create like a dynamic image. So Mendix actually makes it relatively simple. In order to accomplish this, we need to do a couple of things. The first thing is, right now, this is just a static image, which just means that it's the same. It's never going to change. We need to just go over to our toolbox and drop in. You'll see that there's a static image and a dynamic image. So let's drop in this dynamic image right here. Let's see if I can get it inside of there. There we go. Okay, and we can just delete this one. You don't need this. Let me see if it'll let me delete. There we go. Okay, and then this is how Mendix will actually feed in an image based on the professor. And so this takes a little bit of configuring, but let's just look at this together. The first thing we need to do in order to create this dynamic image is we need to actually hop over to our domain model and configure our professor entity to be associated to an image type. What I mean by that is, like, each professor that you create in your database needs to have an image associated with it. And the way that Mendix handles that is by creating a whole separate entity and then associating that entity with the entity you want a picture on. So that was a lot of blabbering, but let me just show you guys how to do that. It's relatively simple. Just drag in an entity. So we need a whole new entity. And I'm actually going to move all of these other ones over really fast, just like that. And let's click into this entity right here. This will be the entity that actually stores our image for the professor. So let's just call it professor image, maybe. You can call it whatever you want. But in order to make it an image type, we need to click this generalization right here. And so without getting into the nitty-gritty, this essentially relies on Mendix's pre-built code to inherit some attributes from existing entities. So if you click into this system module, you'll see that there's an image entity, and that's what we want. That essentially is saying, hey, Mendix, give us all of the code related to images. That way we can store an image relating to professor. So you just click generalization, select, and then system image. And that looks pretty good. So let's click OK. And you'll notice now that there's this little blue box that's just hovering right over the professor image, which means that it's an image type. That's good. So now we just need to associate professor image with professor. And if you guys remember how to do that, we just drag from professor image to professor, and that will create this association. However, this association that by default we have right here is not correct. This is not what we want our association to look like, because what this is saying is that multiple images could be associated to one professor. For the sake of this project, we only want one image for one professor. So let's click into this association, and you can see that you can actually toggle this one-to-one. One professor is associated with one professor image. That's what we want. So let's click OK. Oh, one other thing. Sorry, click back into that. These are also kind of important. When we delete a professor object, we also want to delete the professor image object. But you'll notice if we delete an image, we want to keep professor. We definitely don't want to delete professor if we delete its image. So that's just a really fast thing that we can change, is deleting the professor image if a professor is deleted. That way we don't store unnecessary data in our database. Okay, and that looks good. And I think, let me just double check, make sure we're not missing anything. Let me click into associations right here. Good. Okay, I think that this should be fine. So let's just click save. We might have to revisit this if there's errors, but I think that that's all we need to do to just associate a professor or to give a professor an image. So now how do we actually upload an image? We need a way to have users upload an image for a professor when they are creating professors. So let's actually go over to, we're not going to do this quite yet. Let's actually go over to our professor new edit page. This is the form that users can fill out when they're creating a new professor entity or a new object, I guess. And this seems like a good place for users to be able to upload images for a professor. So this is where we can actually configure setting up the image where they can upload it. So you'll actually notice down here, there's an images, videos, and files section in our toolbox. There is an image uploader widget that we can just drag and drop right here. So this is inside of our data view. And you'll see there's a place to upload images, which is great. But you'll notice that there's an error. And this might seem a little cryptic. It says an image uploader must be placed inside a data view or snippet connected to a system image entity. That's a really long-winded way of saying this data view doesn't know how it should be accessing the image that we created. And if you remember, we were creating it by association, right? We associated the image entity with the professor. And so we need to tell Mendix that that's how it should be getting this. So how do we do that? Well, I wish that there was an easier way, but unfortunately, the best way that I have found after some research is to create a really simple microflow that will configure this for us. So as you can see, doing this is definitely not a simple task, but hopefully it'll make it easier for you guys if you do want to do this in your own project. So what we need to do is we need to first create a new data view right here. We're going to drag this in right here. And we're going to throw this upload image section inside of this data view. And you'll notice that now this stopped yelling at us, but now the data view has an error. We need to configure the data view. Let's double click into this. And what we're going to do is we're going to click microflow. And we're actually going to create a new microflow that will create a new image entity or just retrieve one by association if there's one already created. So hopefully this will make more sense once I start making it. But let's see. We want to pass in professor. Yes. And let's call this DS for data source because we're feeding it to a data grid, data source. And this is a professor entity. And let's just say get professor image. And I'll just click OK. Now we have our microflow. We'll click OK. And now let's double click into our new microflow that we just created. Is it going to let me do that? Oh, sorry, I created this in the wrong directory. Let's actually move this to our parent directory, just like inside of main. There we go. You guys can organize your folders however you want, but I typically just like having all of my microflows and nanoflows in the parent like root directory inside of the main module. But if you wanted to create like a microflows folder, you totally can. We might eventually do that if we get too many of them. But yeah, let's double click into this professor, get professor image. Okay, so inside of this microflow, what we need to do is return a newly created image if one doesn't already exist, or if one does exist, we need to just retrieve that by association. Because what I mean by that, going back to our domain model, retrieving by association means, oh, this professor and this image are associated. They have this line here. So we can actually get an image when we retrieve the professor, which is really, really useful. So if you saw that inside of the Mendix Rapid Developer tutorial, this whole like get by association idea, that's what it means. It's like if there's a line connected, then you can grab something related to it. So let's do that. The first thing we need to do is try and retrieve the image by association to professor. So let's make this activity a retrieve activity. And this is the by association thing I was talking about. We're going to do it by association to our professor. Or sorry, this professor image. This is what we want, right? Okay, so it's saying retrieve the professor image by association. That's great. But here's the thing. What if there isn't one? What if there's no image created? So we need to have a check here to see if that image exists. So let's just call it does image exist? And in order to do that, we just type a $ to see our list of variables we can work with. And we can just say, is professor image not equal to empty, which is just saying, does it exist? And so if it does exist, we just want to return that image at the end of our microflow. So what we could do here, or I guess I should click, if you double click this arrow, then it'll show up this condition value. So if the image exists, then let's click into this ending point. We just want to return the professor image. Because you remember, this is like the data source that we're going to be feeding to our data view inside of our professor new edit page. So it's yelling at us because we haven't actually set the return type of this microflow yet, but we can just do that here. Update type to professor main image, or main professor image, whatever it is. Perfect. So if the image exists, we want to just return it. If it doesn't exist, oh, I can't talk. We want to create a new one. So let's do an activity, new activity. And in this activity, we want to create an object. So we can click select. And what do we want to create? We want to create a professor image. And we don't need to worry about that. New professor image, that's great. So now we created it, but now we need to return it. So let's create an end event, just like that. And we can double click into this and then return the new professor image. And you'll notice that got rid of all of our errors in this microflow. There's still another issue with this microflow, though, that I forgot to do at the beginning of the video, which is to configure the security for it. So we need to say that users are able to use this microflow. So if you just right click, sorry, I'll do that again. If you right click and click into properties right here, or you can also access it from this right-hand tab over here, then just go down to security and allowed roles. And we want to just allow users to access this microflow. Now I'll click save. And now we have a microflow that is getting, whoa, there we go. A microflow that is getting our image or creating a new one if it doesn't exist, which is great. Now let's go back over to our new edit form for professors. Sorry, this one should be working too. So I'm just going to save this. Make sure you save regularly, otherwise you'll likely miss things. I'm just going to close out of some of these things. This is where I wanted to go back to. Now we're all the way back here where we have this dynamic image, and we just need to say, okay, what is the source for this image? Well, it is the professor image entity that we created. So we can select data source, entity path, click into professor right here, professor image professor, and professor image. This is just showing the association between professor and professor image that we created. Let's click select. And oh boy, don't you just love how Mendix does this? These are all pretty easy fixes. We just need to configure some security and then it'll be working. Let's hop over to our domain model. And we just need to click into professor image and give it some access rights. So if you click to access rules, you might remember we had this issue in a previous video, I think too. Let's just say that users are allowed to create and delete images and they get read and write access. So you can just click that right there and then click OK. And you'll see that all the errors just went away now that we did that. So I'm just going to click save. And let's see if we're able to add an image to professors now. That would be pretty cool. So I'm going to run our project. It's going to take a second because we did some changes to the domain model, so the server has to shut down. But I believe that at this point we should be able to add an image to our professor entities. And then that image will show up in our list view when we search for them. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know if your guys' Mendix takes forever to load. Sometimes mine does, and I wish I had a fix for it. Maybe it's just because I'm on a Mac. I don't know if that makes a difference, but yeah, sometimes Mendix does take a while. So once this is done loading, okay, there we go. Let's hop over to our browser. Here we go. It's all loaded up, and let's click over to our professors page. And we already created a whole bunch of professors, so let's see if we can actually just edit one to add an image. And I actually prepared in advance for this and found an image of our main man Scott on the internet. So let's see if we can upload an image for him. Let's try it. So I'm going to click browse. Let's see if it's going to let me. Cool. And there he is, scott.jpg. Love it. I'm going to click save. And didn't throw any errors, so I'm assuming it worked, but let's test it. It kind of just closed out of my tab when I did that. But let's go over to professors and let's try and search Scott. Uh-oh. Why is it not showing the image? Well, I might need to, it doesn't look like it actually uploaded it, so I might need to do that again. Hang on 1 second. Save. Okay, it looks like we might have missed a step. Hang on. I just love it when videos don't work. Because I practiced this before. Okay, well, let's hop over to our dynamic image right here. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. How about this? I'm going to pause the video just really fast. I'll be back in just a second and we'll figure out what is broken. So All right, guys, sorry about that. I figured out the issue. I had a big oversight in this microflow. Um, so we forgot one really important step. The reason why the image wasn't showing is because here we create the image, but we don't actually explicitly set the image to be related to professor here. Um, in order to do that, we actually need to click into this create professor image this activity that we created. And we need to actually assign it to be associated to professor. And the way that Mendix handles this is kind of weird. So that's why I forgot. But we actually need to, if we click into this create object activity and then click new, we need to actually set this main dot professor image. And yours might be reversed of this. It might say professor image professor. It doesn't really matter because it's a one-to-one relationship. But we need to actually set the value here to be the professor that we passed into this microflow. And this should fix our problem. Because now Mendix knows that we actually want to associate this newly created image with this professor. Otherwise, it's just kind of creating one, and Mendix is like, okay, I created it, but it doesn't know that it's associated with professor. So now, if we retry, I apologize about that. Forgot that important step. So let me hop over to here. Now, if we click into professors and let's edit Scott Murph and upload our image and click save. Oh, wait, hang on, sorry. We need to type in Scott. There we go. There is our image. Yeah, so we just needed to create that association right there. And you'll see that my image is pretty small. Yours might come up super big or something. If you want to configure the sizes of images, let me go back to Studio Pro really quick. Inside of our search results page right here, under this dynamic image, if you click into this, you'll notice that you can actually change the height and width, or you can display like the how the image is displayed. You can change that as well. So I set it to be a thumbnail, and then I might actually just set these to auto. And I believe that just setting it to thumbnail will make it small. And now if we click save and hop back over, we'll just need to save really quick. And now if we hop back over, oh, well, it's about the same, but that's all right. There we go. Now we have an image. So you guys can do that same thing with any of your other attributes or entities that you're working with in your project, is give them your own custom image. And so what I want to challenge you guys to do, in addition to setting up this search courses functionality, maybe where after you search something, it'll show results for professor and for courses. So maybe just like professors on top, courses on bottom. You can kind of choose how you want to lay it out. In addition to that, I would like to challenge you guys to try and design your own list view for the professor page and the courses page. Because right now this default is all right. Like you could just leave it if you want to, but it doesn't really feel like it fits what we're going for. Because on these two pages, we're really just trying to show all the professors and all the courses. And this feels a little unnecessary here on the left. I don't know if we need all these search fields right here. Like you can kind of choose what you want to keep and not keep, but so if you'd like to, I would challenge you guys to change the styling of these and maybe even try and add search bars on these pages right here. Or even maybe when you type in a search result, maybe you'd be able to actually pass the search result in right here and actually show the search bar here as well, so that users can refine their search afterwards. But that's kind of up to you. Depends on how far you want to take this. But anyway, for the sake of this tutorial, we'll probably just stop here, and I'll challenge you guys to work on those things on your own. And I might implement some of those things on my own as well before the next video. But yeah, in the next video, we're finally going to be getting into creating pages for professors and courses. So when I would click on this, currently it doesn't do anything. But what I want it to do is when I click this, I want it to actually route me to a page where I display information about this professor or the course. And so that's what we'll be working on in the next video. And let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. But yeah, I think that's about it. Well, in the next video, we'll also go over how to add snippets. You might have seen snippets as an option in different options on here. Like there's different ways that you can kind of modularize your code. You can put all your code into similar buckets, I guess, and it makes it easier to organize and reuse different code snippets. So that's all that snippets are. And so we might do a little bit of that for the next video. But until then, keep on working on this, and good luck on your own personal apps.